In its most simple form, we've always said that Blue Vineyard exists to build up the Adventist digital ecosystem. That's our North Star. And the reason for that is because we believe that those who are preaching the truth should be equipped with the best tools. And these days, technology, that's our skill set. And so they're the tools that we're building. And that's really the core of what we do.
All right, Luke, let's get into it. I am super excited to hear your thoughts on Blue Vineyard's web design and development. I want to break this up into a couple of parts. Specifically, who is this for? Like, who should look at Blue Vineyard's offering and say, yep, that's who it's for. That's for us. And then some of the things that you're excited about, some of the projects that are excited about that have been done and on the horizon. So yeah, let's get started. Who do you think, if you kind of your ideal profile around Blue Vineyard and its website and development, who's it for?
Sure. So the people that this is ideally for is for, this is our oldest product. So this is, or oldest service. This is something that we've been doing for a really long time. We have a lot of depth of expertise. And so we are best suited to working with larger church organizations or ministries to be able to develop really consistent and often large-scale websites. So, you can think of large education institutions, conferences, unions, charities. Those sort of customers are our ideal. We have a lot of relationships with a lot of smaller entities as well, which, potentially all the way down to local churches. But the people that we're the best equipped to serve are those people that are looking for the mid to upper market sort of websites. And the reason for that is because we've got team members that can approach this not just from a design and development perspective, but we've got user experience specialists. We've got people that can bring a lot of different expertise to build really complex systems. So yeah, that would be the people that I think is ideally for it.
Nice. Have you seen that kind of be a trend recently, the different types of projects kind of going to the larger entities?
Yeah. I'm glad you asked that, because I think the reason this is important is that as technology progresses, the more we see AI, the more we see these advances in technology and services like, Wix and Squarespace and WordPress and like all of these things that exist in the marketplace. Those tools are improving. And so the bottom of the market, I think, is getting more and more competitive. And whilst we can help people there, that is getting more competitive because there are so many people that are trying to serve those people that are in that category. And so I think that we can be the most help with the skills that we have for jobs that require more than what tools can provide, where you actually need some experience and expertise to be able to do that. And so that's one of the reasons why as a team, we have been pursuing projects that are larger in scope, because we see that they're the people that we can help the most. We've got the largest amount of benefit that we can bring. Like as a couple of examples, we've been working on a project that I've been really proud of for the ministerial department for our union. And it's a website that was not very well maintained. I would say almost not maintained at all. But the new leadership there has a real vision to be much clearer and to set their messaging and to communicate a totally different story about what their department can do and what it's for. And because they had that vision that they want to change the perception of how people observe them as a department and what they do in ministry, that allowed us to be able to step in and go, okay, well, how can we communicate that well? What needs to happen in order for that to be true, and to work with them at a partnership level to make that happen? I feel like that's a good example. Another one is a project that we're working on, and to be honest, the project was on hold for quite a while, but we're coming back to it now and finishing strong on a project for Upper Columbia Academy. It's something that we've been, again, really proud of the designs and the work that's been done. But with a school like that, there's a lot of content that needs to be taken into consideration. How do you tell those stories? How do you make sure that the people who are coming are feeling that the direction is clear, that the message that they want to project is actually what's being projected, and organizing all that data. So yeah, there are a few other ones that are sort of coming to the end of, or have finished recently, that we've been really excited about.
I love that. Yeah, it's been fun to watch Blue Vineyard over the time in its maturity and
Mm,
saying, hey, earlier on, it's maybe more, smaller one-off type of
mm,
situations. Some of the interesting things that we've seen in North America is the
mm.
NAD moving to WordPress. That
Yes.
feels like an opportunity for some of the work that Blue Vineyard is doing. Any thoughts around this big migration to
Mm.
WordPress and how Blue Vineyard fits into that?
I am personally very passionate about open source and the open web as a concept. I think that is something that is a very wise move for the church corporately, because as much as we are a company and we want to build things and ownership matters, being able to build up an ecosystem of tools that is accessible to people, no matter where they are and what opportunities are available to them, I think that's especially important in a a church ecosystem like ours, because we're not just trying to do something that is going to benefit us. We're trying to do something that benefits the whole ecosystem, the whole community. And that's really what we are founded on. And so just when I saw that the church is moving this direction to, move towards using WordPress, I found that really exciting, because that signals to me that there's room for us to be of service there, because it's something that we have expertise in. But I think that it also shows a lot of wisdom, because I believe, and as much as I think that the generations of church leadership have done what they've seen to be right in that moment of history, I feel that this is a very smart move, because historically our position has been much more proprietary and closed off. And so I love the movement that we're working in right now. I think it positions us well so we don't get left behind technologically.
Yeah, I love that. It's fun to see that, like, where churches, we own our sites, and that's that beautiful part of not just being on a platform. Like, sure,
Yeah.
churches, they will have social media accounts and they'll contribute into those spaces, and that's an important thing. But at the end of the day, this is our website, and we are not beholden to another platform.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm excited to see where web design and development goes for Blue Vineyard. There's a lot of things on the horizon. One of the other maybe smaller aspects of Blue Vineyard is in podcasting. It's kind of what we're doing right now. So we believe in it.
Yes,
Tell me a little bit about Blue Vineyard podcasting, and who's that for? How could someone benefit from the services that Blue Vineyard provides around podcasting?
So podcasting, there's multiple ways that it can be useful. I believe that the way that it is most valuable is that it communicates and it interacts with people at a much more personal level than most media. If you have an audience that follows you on TikTok or Instagram, they're probably going to be seeing a snap or a clip of you that is 30 seconds in duration, maybe, and you can build relationships that way. True. The thing with podcasts is that you're often going to be sitting with someone on their commute to work, and they're going to listen to you for hours. They'll sit with you for an hour or more at a time to hear your perspective if you're somebody that they resonate with. And so the depth of connection is much deeper than many others. And so I believe that is especially relevant in this time, because as an evangelistic church, as people who want to share a message with others, that gets shared in depth, not breadth, because everyone has, have you seen the statistics on how many pieces of advertising people are exposed to in a day?
Man.
Right. It's so much. We need to find ways to operate at scale where we are cutting through that level of noise, and by spray and pray messaging, where we're just getting as many things out there as possible, it does something. But I believe that if we don't have the depth of connection to back it up, for example, a podcast, then it's much harder to maintain and actually make a difference in people's lives. So I think that's one thing. I would then break what we do into, as far as like who this is for or who should be paying attention to podcasting. I think any pastor who wants to have those deep conversations with people, it makes sense for them to be involved. But I think the opportunity right now has changed over the last 5 years, because I actually, in our last episode with Khan, we talked a bit more in more depth about this. But when podcasting first came, all the people that were on podcasts were the people who were the early adopters. There was no big podcast networks. There was no people that had unlimited budgets. It was just, a guy and a mic. And there was a lot of those and so they amassed their own little audiences. I released a podcast, like I started my first podcast in 2016. So I was closer to the early days of podcasting, and that's still how it felt. But then, NPR and Slate and all of these big, Gimlet Media, all these production houses popped up, and the quality went way up. And so there's still room for all of the podcasters, but I think a lot of those big podcasting networks really attracted a lot of the audience from the smaller podcasts to them. I think if we're going to build the kind of audiences that we want to build in podcasting, you need to have some quality. You need to have something that's different about what you do compared to what everybody else does. And so a part of what we do is we help people find that. So if there is a conference or a university or a union or, like a nonprofit organization in the church, and they're looking to build these opportunities for depth of connection, then we help them to sit down and go, okay, how can we create a show that is going to achieve that will cut through the noise? So we've been doing an engagement at the moment with the Geoscience Research Institute for the Creation Sabbath initiative, and we've been like ideating around how we can communicate their message in this way, and that's been a great experience to be able to work with them and build that. But that's a great example of the kinds of things that I think we're uniquely positioned to be able to help with.
Wow, yeah. And I'm going to just remind you that you said 2016, so that makes you've been doing this 10 years.
Ooh, wow. Thank you for making me feel old, Adam.
You started when you were 2, so yeah.
Oh, no. So that's fine. That's fine. That's right.
Yeah, you're very young.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about the Creation Sabbath. That sounds like a really interesting project. What are you most excited about with Creation Sabbath?
So Creation Sabbath is this initiative, this podcast, it's not just audio, it's going to be a video as well. And so it is really presenting an opportunity to get the message out. For those of you who aren't familiar, Creation Sabbath is a week each year, or a Sabbath each year, where they are promoting creation science. And the idea is that in local churches, there would be a day of emphasis on this. And historically, they've released social media content to be able to interact with people around it. And they came to us to talk about doing a podcast to really, as I said before, develop that depth in their community. And so they can sit down and have a long form conversation with the professors that are doing this cutting edge research that is supporting the idea of creation, that is supporting the idea of the historicity of the Bible, and to be able to showcase that in a really positive way. And so we're helping them to, number one, plan the episode. Number two, we're coaching them in what needs to happen to record the episodes. Number three, they give us the content. We edit it, like we master the recordings. We construct it in a way that is ready to be shared and distributed, and then we cut up all of the social media for it as well. So the clips, the reels for Instagram, all of the things, and then manage that, sending that out to their social media profiles. So that's a bit more about, like, I guess, what the process or how we're helping.
Yeah, I love that. There's people who we want to do a podcast, and it sounds great and fun, and like, oh yeah, you sit down, in front of a microphone and press the button, and you're done. And there's so much more to that. And what I love about what we're doing specifically with Creation Sabbath, but what Blue Vineyard podcast production can do is, hey, all we need to worry about on the other side is I do want to plan an episode, work on the content, sit down, have a great conversation with someone, and then for it to just magically show up in all the places, looking beautiful, and having the shorts, cut up and different editing and done. And that's the tough work that is fun to see Blue Vineyard do.
Yeah.
One of the next things I want to talk about real quick is, these have been like the kind of the service parts of Blue Vineyard, where, hey, I have a problem and I would like a custom solution. Build a podcast for me, make a website for me. There is another initiatives that Blue Vineyard having this depth of very talented people. And recently, some big stuff happened in Australia with one of the large software providers that many Adventist organizations were reliant on. And that birthed something called TrustLoop. Could you tell me a little bit about TrustLoop?
This is one of the crazy things that, the way, whenever you're dealing with technology, things move quickly. And sometimes when, especially for people that are operating in the ministry space, sometimes, divine appointments show up without warning and you need to respond to them. And this was one of those situations. So Operaru is what most of the church organizations like Pathfinders, or even for camp meetings, like that is the tool that they were using to manage consent forms for children and medical records. So, we know that, little Johnny needs an EpiPen and he's allowed to self-administer. Like, these are the way that this was managed. What we've always seen that as, that would be something that would be great to get into. But a few months back, like I think it was probably October-ish, or maybe even slightly before that, but we heard that they're going to be shutting down in Australia. The company that had purchased Operaru, it was acquired by an American company, and it was going to be shutting down its Australian operations at the end of January. And so we saw that as an opportunity, that there was going to be a gap in the market, that the church needed these tools. And so we decided to explore what could be done to fill that gap. And so we created a tool called TrustLoop that is, it's designed to fill the gaps that Operaru left behind, but it's also designed to go beyond that. So we really are passionate about seeing this be adopted, not just by the church, but also by the broader community, because this was in use by a lot of schools. And, we have a lot of passion for schooling, and, I'm sure we'll talk more about education in our conversation, but we decided that we were going to jump into that world and build this tool. And so as of last week, we actually launched the tool last week, and there's already 1,500 to 2,000 members that have been onboarded into the system, and it's growing rapidly. We're building things. We're ensuring that it is doing, as I said, what Operaru was doing, but we also want it to be able to handle it much more intuitively, because Operaru had not been updated for quite a while, and so there was a lot of holes in the abilities there. And so we went ahead, we created that tool, and that's something that we're very excited about. We're working on building it for the Australian market first, and then we're hoping to make that something that's globally available to the church.
All right, so let's kind of there was a need, and it became very apparent that someone needed to fill this gap that was created. Blue Vineyard saw, hey, I think we can be of service here. If someone who is listening to this and they're thinking, I wonder if that would be a solution for us, could you describe kind of the ideal customer for TrustLoop is going to solve your problem. This is a really good product for what you're doing, and you should take a look at it.
So it's designed to work really well with multi-level organizations. So it can work at a single level. Like if you have a Pathfinder club, or you run a big VBS or something like that, absolutely, I think that is a really great example of people who will benefit from it. But at the next level up, there are corporate features as well. So if a conference was to be a customer, it can be used in for multiple Pathfinder organizations underneath it. So it is something that I think is excellent for anywhere that especially children are involved, medical records are involved, and then the need for complex form management, because there's a lot of situations these days with all the red tape that is out there for safety, where people need to be able to have these approvals, people need to sign disclaimers or waivers, and this will manage that in a very elegant way for those organizations and make it very streamlined.
Oh, fantastic. It's been fun kind of watching TrustLoop just sort of suddenly, and here it is. Yeah. Moving very quickly. As you describe TrustLoop, some of the things that you're describing are a part of what you would need for running a successful event, which brings me to Blue Vineyard for quite a while now has had an events software kind of as a service. And I'd love to hear about how those two might interact in the future for someone who maybe is currently looking for event software or who is a current customer of Blue Vineyard's event software.
Yes. So this is interesting because the events product that we developed, it was our very first tool. And I would definitely say that tool, that's a part of a product and a service for us. So it is a product that we made so people can have event registrations. And we very quickly realized that the problem that a lot of our church organizations had was not that they didn't have a good enough tool exclusively. It was also that they didn't have the people and the processes in place to effectively run those events without a lot of stress being dumped on somebody in the system. And so we offered that along with the service of us having a team member that is able to be on site to help with check-ins, to be able to manage the event registration process beforehand, to do allocations for campsites. Like it's a full service that we put together, and it was very, very helpful for the people that had the service. The interaction between TrustLoop and the events tool is that the events tool needs to be updated. It has got to the place where we developed an MVP. It was doing the job, but in order for it to go to that next level of professionalism, in order to be a really polished product, it needed to be rebuilt. And we had a choice. We could either invest in doing that, or we can use the infrastructure that we're building with TrustLoop, which already needs event functionality in it, and we can add the features to TrustLoop that would be required in the events tool. And since TrustLoop has been engineered from the ground up as a professional ready application, like, that you would be very comfortable with, that's very familiar, that feels like a polished professional option, it's much smarter for us to extend that product and make that product the new events version, rather than continuing to redevelop something else from the ground up. It'll be a better experience for our customers, and it'll also mean that we can focus our attention on less products to execute on them much better. So
got it. That makes sense. I was having a conversation with someone talking about software, and you think about events, like, why do we need software? I've got spreadsheets. We can just keep track of the events and registration. There's things like Google Forms and things out there that we could use. And what we were talking about with when should you pay for software for that service is that when it saves you time, is that when you have an event and you've got hey, instead of having 5 people to do this part of it, we can do it with 3 people or 2 or 1 person, and that's where the software makes you more efficient. And that's when it's having event registration software and all the things that TrustLoop will eventually be able to do. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important for us to recognize that a part of the when do you get the product, because people have said to me before, why not just use Google Forms, and I think it's a very fair question. But I think the real value that we've been able to bring is that because our team is Adventist, we have the understanding of how these things work, and our camp meetings, whether we like it or not, are very complex things that are quite unique. Yes, there are other complex events, absolutely, but we do things a certain way. We are a peculiar people, and this is one of the places where that shines through. That it takes a lot to make these happen. And what our very first foray into this field, just to put some perspective around this, what we did saved them a full-time, 1 FTE for 6 to 8 months. That was what it saved the organization for the original. And so when you can save that sort of time for an organization, that's meaningful, right? We're doing something that's actually impacting them in a really positive way. So.
And those people can be freed up to do more ministry instead of more bookkeeping and more of the managerial. Precisely. And that's a wonderful thing that good software allows us to do. And speaking of good software, this next one is one of the things that is most near and dear to my heart as a former educator. Schools, Adventist schools in particular, are in desperate need of software solutions that really elevate our schools and help our schools to be the best of the best. And we are so proud of our educational systems. It's one of the bedrock of Adventism is our education system. Elevate Ed. Tell me a little bit about Elevate Ed. It's multifaceted, so there's different parts to this. Yeah, what is Elevate Ed and who is it for?
Yeah. Okay. So when we were looking at this is an opportunity that came to us from inside the Adventist schooling system, where people came to us and said, this tool needs to exist, and we're looking for a partner to do that. And what I'll say up front is that is how we like to do business, just to be clear. Like, we love it when people come to us and say, I have lived experience in this area, and this is what we need in this area. And then we get to partner with that person to make that a reality. And so that is actually, as I think about it, that is how we got started with events. That's how we got started with both of these tools that I'm about to talk about now. That's really how we've got our start with everything that we've done. And so that's the model that we like to use. What I will say about Elevate Ed itself is that currently it is 2 tools, but we're looking to add more tools to that suite over time. There's ideas that are ahead of us. But for now, the flagship tool is called AppraisAI. So it is a tool that is specifically designed to manage like performance appraisals for staff members in the education system. So most of the tools that are currently available, because of course there are other tools to do this, there's plenty of HR platforms, and that's not a question. The problem is that most of those tools only measure the staff members on the axis of, are they effective teachers? They don't look at their alignment with the organization. They don't look at their, at their values. They don't necessarily always look at their conduct. And so this is a 3-dimensional way of appraising them that allows us to see very clearly. And there's a couple of really exciting things I'm going to insert in just a second. But at least on this level, it appraises them on how are they as a teacher? Like, are they meeting the teaching standards? It appraises them on the level of what is their professional conduct like? Are they working well in the team? Are they doing those things? And then it aligns them with the organization. Like, for us as Adventists, our schools, our education institutions are designed to be missional by nature. And so you want to know, like, are the people who are in your organization value aligned with where the school is going? And are they living out those principles? This is something that is being implemented. It's already being rolled out into schools here in Australia and is getting tested. We're looking forward to rolling that out hopefully quite quickly into other spaces. But the other really major feature that is very exciting, which factors into your question of who's this for, yes, it's for schools. It is especially useful for schooling systems, where there's multi-campus, or where there is the need for the accountability of leadership. Because yes, you're appraising staff members, but you also need to be thinking around, well, who's the next leader? Where are we going from here? And so a part of this performance appraisal system is the ability for people to set goals, whether they want to be moving towards leadership or they want to move towards curriculum development or like whatever it is. But this helps them set goals for the team members, but it gives them visibility. So let's say hypothetically you are over 50 schools. You know that this principal is going to be retiring at this school over here at the end of the year. You know that you're going to have an empty seat. So you go, okay, well, who can I reach out to? Currently, the way that's done, or at least in the ecosystems that we've spoken to, the way that's done is personal knowledge, right? Like, who can we, I know this guy. Let's talk to this guy. Or, advertising for the position, interviewing for the position. How much more effective would it be if you could look at a dashboard and you could say, well, here's like 10 different people who are on a leadership track. They've had experience as head of school, or, they've got these, qualities, and they've got these desires to move into this direction. You've already shortlisted 5 to 10 people. You're like, okay, I know it's going to be one of these people, or these are going to be a good fit. And then you can do further examination. But you would have zero visibility if you didn't have a tool to tell you that was consistently measuring performance across the entire system up to that point. So that's number one. That's, like, as I said, that's the flagship tool. The second tool is one also came to us from the same means, them saying, hey, we need this to work in a certain way. And that is complaint resolution. So or complaint management, because the way that, or the issue that was being experienced for this particular person was that they are in a role where they are over a system of schools, and the only complaint management mechanism in that system was email the director. And so the director was overrun with so many different things across the size of his system but he said, I want to be spending time setting direction, training my leaders to be growing their capacity to do these things, not sitting at a desk and handling emails all day to deal with people's problems. And so we developed a system that would efficiently manage that in recognition of the accountability that needs to take place within the system. And whilst there are tools where you can submit tickets and whatever, this is very uniquely structured for education institutions. And it also deals with the nuances of, well, if somebody that is being complained about is in the hierarchy that would see this, then it's blocked out for that person. That person would not see it. So there's these little considerations that mean something in this structure.
Oh, it's so great. And I love there's this sense at Blue Vineyard of yes, we can. We can figure this out. We can help you. We understand you. We're one of you. We're products in many cases of an Adventist school education. We're working, our spouses, we are connected in ministry. And Blue Vineyard has this deep bench of talent of people that can solve problems. And that's one of the things I love about Blue Vineyard. Passion for education. I can't wait to see more schools take advantage of this, give input, and even to the point of kind of like you mentioned, we're expecting Elevate Ed as a platform to grow, to have more tools, because we know that schools have more problems to solve, and we can do that with technology. We can do it with good software.
That something you said there, I want to just talk to a little bit of the philosophy of this, because at no point in building this company have we as a team thought we want to build a monolithic company. We don't want to be Apple, Facebook, Amazon. That's not the model that we're trying to build. The thing that what we are trying to build is, as I said before, I use this word ecosystem. This factors heavily into our thinking. So the only reason that we have been able to build these products is because we have been able to build relationships. And those relationships have been, just to give one really clear example, we did not have enough developers to be able to build TrustLoop in time for the release that was necessary. Here's a great example. We have a great relationship with Alex and his team at Deep Vision, which is another Adventist company. And because we have such a close relationship with them, we were able to come to them very quickly and say, this is what we need to do. Can we collaborate on this and work together to achieve it? With some of the other opportunities that have come out of this, you were mentioning, these education tools. We would desperately love for this to be something that the church can make use of in multiple places. And yes, we have connections here in Australia where I'm based, but our team is an international team. Adam, you have an experience, you were a school principal, this space. And so, because you are in our ecosystem or in our network, we were able to have a conversation and say, Adam, what does this look like in the US? How can it help in that situation? And so the fact that we have people, our team, I was looking, I have a map on the wall behind me, actually, you can see on the other side of the room over here. I have a map, and on that map, I have pins for where all of our team members are. And our team is spread across 9 different countries. And so we have all of these little pieces of context that we wouldn't have otherwise, just because of how we're building our team. And so, I say that just to point out that we are, the value that we're creating is not just in the product. The value we're creating is in the relationships, because we're planning to be here for a long time. And whilst, when any business is starting, there's the first few stumbling steps of figuring things out, but we're planning for this to be a really long-term thing where we can make an impact globally on the Adventist ecosystem. And you can't do that alone. So we're not trying to. We're trying to build those relationships to make it happen.
Oh, I love that. And it's such a great, here's your why. Why are we doing this? That's it right there. And I think that's wonderful. And again, why I'm glad that I'm one of those little pins, even far away from you, but that we're still connected. Blue Vineyard is, in ways, it's a technology company. It's looking forward. And this is a time, I did a sermon on this about 2 years ago now, and I'm going to do another follow-up one called Christianity in the Age of AI. What does it mean to be a Christian when we can no longer believe what we see, and we have access to so much, and we have these AI agents, and there's things that are happening so quickly? And Blue Vineyard has recognized that this is an important part, and it's like the internet. Like, it's not a fad. AI isn't going away. Like, we can either bury our head in the sand and hope we don't have to deal with it, or we can lean into it and, okay, how does this impact my Christianity? How am I going to use it to further the kingdom? And that's where kind of AdventAI sort of came into to Blue Vineyard. Can you talk a little bit about what AdventAI is and who is it for, and what's Blue Vineyard? How is it working with AdventAI?
Yeah, absolutely. I've always had an interest in AI, and as obviously we operate in the Adventist ecosystem, I spent a lot of time looking at Adventist flavors of AI as people built them. And, there was 6-7 different tools that I found that were made by either various individuals or divisions or ministries. And as I was looking at those, I was disappointed. Like, I love the fact that there are people that are trying to do it, but I just felt that they weren't executing well. And someone shared a link with me to AdventAI, and AdventAI was developed by Emmanuel Higgins. You can go back. He's on previous episodes that you could find on this show. But when I saw that, I realized that he had created something that was truly polished and professional, and it was designed to be able to be a study companion for the Bible, for Ellen White's writings, for the Pioneers' writings, and to be done in a way that is fully referenced, fully traceable, non-hallucinatory. Like, there's a lot of hallucination issues with where AI will say, this is a quote from Ellen White or from the book of Matthew. And whilst it keeps the ideas sound, it's actually not a quote. It's fully making that quote up as it goes. I think we've all had this experience when we've just fact checked something in AI and be like, oh, hang on a second, is that actually true? So the fact that he was able to polish this product to that degree, I thought this is great. And so we got together, and we're collaborating with Emmanuel. We're partnering with him on projects which are very, like, some of them are still under wraps, and I can't wait to be able to share some of these. Like, we literally got news of one of these opportunities that came through this morning, and so hopefully by the time this video is out there in the wild, maybe it will be able to announce it. But there's some very exciting things that are happening with doing direct ministry using AI that is going to spread the gospel. So if you have any interest in AI and using it for spiritual purposes, I recommend having a look at AdventAI as a tool. It's amazing. For many reasons. It has the chat feature that I've mentioned, but it also has consistent character image generation. So you can generate characters for your Sabbath school classes or for your sermon slides or whatever it might be that is actually coded to the person. It doesn't look like 4 different versions of David going slide to slide. It's consistent. And you can even add your own models of people if you don't like the ones that are in there. So you will then continue to get consistent character references. You also have there's a Sabbath school mode in it that is aware of the Sabbath school lesson and where it's up to this week, and you can have conversations with it to help plan the Sabbath school studies or get discussion questions or fill in the blank, whatever it might be. It can do an awful lot of things. So I recommend checking that out.
I love it. The future is bright. Scary times, and when you're asking biblical questions or questions about that are specifically, Seventh-day Adventist worldview, it gets scary. Like, oh, it went out to Wikipedia and found that answer, and it wants to please me, and so it tells me something that, wait, that's not quite right. But having a tool like AdventAI, where this is built with this purpose in mind, is really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Blue Vineyard has a lot of things going on. There's some projects and different things where, kind of like you'd mentioned, people have a problem that can be solved by software. What does it look like to, and we've talked about this in other podcasts, kind of comparing, hey, an off-the-shelf product is going to work for me, or you know what, our ministry is unique. It's a little different. We would love custom-built software, and it feels like custom-built software is more approachable now than it's ever been because of the tools and speed and AI and all these things. What about someone wanting Blue Vineyard to build a software solution?
So this is something that we are very happy to do. It's actually, if I was to project the direction of what we're doing, yes, we are doing these things, but for our agency work, the actual service-based work that we do, we're seeing more of this work right now. So where people are coming to us and saying, let's do this. The way that looks, if you're wondering if you have an idea or a problem that you want solved and you think technology can do it, the way that this works and the way we often do it is that someone comes to us, explains the needs, and then we will collaborate together on what that could look like. We do some brainstorming together, some solution design. But often we have a preliminary engagement where we start with doing a deep discovery where we're interviewing the relevant team members, we're doing research as to what the technology can achieve and the ways that is the best to do it. And we structure, this is how we think it should be done. If that is something that resonates with you, this is the ballpark of what it's going to cost. And if we collaborate together, and this is important because I think this is perhaps different from a lot of the other providers that are out there. One of our core values is sustainability, because I've seen a lot of people do things in the name of ministry that are unsustainable. And so what that means is you end up doing ministry for 12 months. You don't end up doing ministry for the rest of your life because, or you have to cancel it, close it down, whatever it might be. Yep. And I understand it comes from a good place. It comes from people being like, oh, I don't want to charge because I want to be able to, this to be freely available or whatever it might be. But our hypothesis that we're working from is that if we can build a sustainable company, then we can be around to do good work for a lot longer. We can be here for the long haul. And so what we love to do when people come to us, especially with a product that has greater utility than just what their particular use case is, we like to be able to partner with that organization and say, okay, we will do some kind of an arrangement where you benefit, so you're rewarded for it as well. And we will be able to then sell that product to other people who it would make their lives better too. And so when we do that, that often means that the company that came to us can get some of that investment back in the form of the money that would come back from that arrangement. It also means that we are able as a company to have another product that we can offer to the network that we're building, and also allows us to get into other networks, right? Because there's that network effect that then happens. One of the concerns, and a lot of people have pointed this out, and we've been, I think, we're coming 4 to 5 years old now as a company, as an organization, and through that time, a number of people have said to me, "Oh, you're doing too many things, and you need to pick one thing and do it well." And I think there's value and there's reasons for that. The thing that is different here, and a lot of the people will cite some of the biggest brands in the world and why they're doing well, and I think that's true. But you have to be clear on what you're doing better than anybody else, right? What a lot of people, they say, okay, I am the best at, they'll build a product and that's the product and I'm just the best at that product. But then there are other world-class companies who take a different approach, like General Electric, for example. They are not the best in the world at making air conditioners or microwaves or power generation, but they're very good at those things. But the thing that they are the very best, if you look at their internal documentation, is the fact that we recruit and have the best leaders and the best management culture of any company in the world. And that is what allows them to then do multiple things. And so we are more of a GE kind of a company than than a Facebook kind of a company, because what we're trying to build here is a system that builds sustainable technology companies that will build an ecosystem. And so every time somebody comes to us, we don't say, oh, well, we've got a big team and that's just going to be one more thing on that team. We go about building a team around that product so that team can put deep focus onto that thing, and then that has its best chance of survival, but it has access to the resources of the broader group. So we can say, oh, well, here's a person who has been honing their craft in lead generation, and here's a new product that needs somebody to focus on marketing, and so let's match those together, and that he can be a part of the founding team of that product. And so we're trying to build this incubator of sorts that is doing the best in the world, but not at a single thing. We're building best in the world teams that do individual projects. So I hope that's a adequate description.
That's helpful, and I love that. And it's again why I've chosen to be a part of the team and continue to do so. In that, and kind of adding to that, like Blue Vineyard doesn't just do one thing, but there is this focus on ministry and using technology to solve problems to help people do ministry better. And I love that. It's such a great thing. We've talked a lot about Blue Vineyard, all the different areas, whether it's building websites, podcasts, these different software solutions for education or events or organizations, and all this great stuff. AI, Blue Vineyard is doing a lot, and I can't wait to see what more it's going to do. As we're kind of wrapping this up, Luke, if there was someone who was kind of just introduced to Blue Vineyard, and you wanted to kind of summarize, what is Blue Vineyard? Who is Blue Vineyard? What's it for? What's its role? Could you kind of just give a brief summary?
In its most simple form, we've always said that Blue Vineyard exists to build up the Adventist digital ecosystem. That's our North Star. We want to build up the Adventist digital ecosystem. And the reason for that is because we believe that those who are preaching the truth should be equipped with the best tools. And these days, technology, that's our skill set. And so they're the tools that we're building. And that's really the core of what we do. We just want to see the gospel go to the world. We want to serve the church so it can do that faster, more effectively, more efficiently. And we're using what God has put in our hands to be able to do that more effectively.
Fantastic. I love it. So if anybody says, hey, Blue Vineyard is doing some of the things, I might need this. I'm a ministry that could, need a new website or could use a podcast or all of these things. What is the best way for someone to get started with Blue Vineyard? What would that look like?
Yeah, you can send us an email directly, which is just hello@bluevineyard.com. That will find its way to me. So I would be happy to have a conversation with you. You can go to our website, bluevineyard.com. Also an easy place to find us. And we're finally starting to get some social media presence as well. So you can search for Blue Vineyard on Instagram, Facebook, and you'll find us there as well.
There you go. And I just want to encourage anybody who feels like, hey, technology is the thing that is holding up my business, but I just want to talk to somebody. I'm not sure exactly even what I need. Please don't hesitate to reach out. It doesn't need to be a sales call or anything. Blue Vineyard is a business, but it is also a ministry, and we're here to help. And that's one of the fun and exciting things that I know to be true about Blue Vineyard.
Absolutely.
All right. Until next time.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Blue Vineyard podcast. For more episodes, information about our services, and more, please visit bluevineyard.com.